All right. So I think we will. I will share today about uh, my failed suicide number 6, somewhere in there. It's around 6. I've never really written them out the order, but this is probably about number 6. And I shared this probably a month ago, or a little over a month ago, at church. As this was part of it, as my testimony, and but you know, I think there just wasn't the time there to develop the story, the surrounding information. So this, yeah, we're going to talk about number 6, but before we do, let's get some context. Let's get some, where was I, what was going on, and stuff like that. And this is after Dad died, and man, the next little part I tell you, I could stretch out into a whole video. But you remember I was in the hospital when Dad died, and for my own mental health treatment, and I was in there a long time. Um, yeah, I got to try not to drive or go into that story. I did eventually get to go home to my house in Arizona, where we lived, and then my biological mother from Iowa kind of got her nose in our business, and she convinced, which I don't know, my stepmom was a complete wreck. I mean, she was that'd be an understatement, I mean, like, yeah, she was existing, and so I'm sure it didn't take much by a couple phone calls to convince her of her wonderful plan. And that wonderful plan was basically getting me removed from the home that I've pretty much always known, the family, brothers, sisters, friends, and just everything. I was 17 at the time, and yeah, so she got her in agreements to it, and I end up getting put back in the same hospital that I was in for all that time, around, before and after Dad's death, and I was there, and I didn't know what the hell was going on, other than they thought I was, I don't know, not suicidal. Yeah, I guess suicidal. Like I was a threat to myself, and I don't know. I was doing a hell of a lot better than my mom, my stepmom. you know, I don't know. I was going outside at least or study. I don't know. It it pissed me off. It was like a kind of a power play, in my opinion. And so I was in the hospital, and I was in there. I always tell it this way. I was in that hospital until uh, Dad's insurance ran out, and Dad had Cigna insurance. Now I don't even know if Cigna's a name anymore, but I'm just telling you, back then it was the name. It'd be like pulling out the black credit card. They covered everything, and it was it. And he worked for a company that was it. Motorola back then, and Motorola was actually a real company back then. It was the Google of the day. Well, I was in there long enough, uh, against my will, if you will, till the insurance ran out, and then somehow it was figured out that that I was being transferred to Iowa, but apparently I was still a risk. You know, I was still going to hurt myself, I guess. You know, and I'm not doubting that I wasn't, struggling, but I wasn't, I don't know. So believe it or not, I don't even know if they would do this nowadays. I mean, this is just crazy. Um, I got driven to the airport um, with what I don't even know if they have these terms anymore, but it was a psych tech. Okay, so I don't know where they fit. You know, it's not a nurse. It's not I don't know, but a psych tech. And a psych tech drove me to the airport there, and then we both proceeded to get on uh, the plane. And you know how much luggage I had? None. I had none. And same with the psych tech. Yeah, none. So we get on a plane, and we're heading from Arizona to Cedar Rapids, and I don't remember if if it was a cab or I don't know, but the psych tech was with me when we got off the airplane, and we get into a car or whatever, and we go to Saint Luke's and in Cedar Rapids, and they they basically transferred me from one state to the other. They transferred me from one mental institution to another mental institution. They transferred me from one health insurance coverage to another health insurance coverage. They changed my, I don't want to say point of contact. I don't know what word I want to use, but it changed my person from my stepmom to my mom. Well, the psych tech, they went and checked me in and all this and that. And once I was behind, locked doors, and well, bye bye, good luck, and that psych tech got back on a plane and headed back to Arizona. I don't know if that seemed crazy then. It definitely seems crazy now. But that's what took place. And my bio mom was on, I don't even know what they called it back then, Title 19 or whatever, state insurance, which is even better than Cigna insurance, right? I mean, and I'll tell you, I will share some stories about that stay. Yeah, it was, that's exactly what you want to do with somebody who's still grieving. Yeah, all those things I just mentioned. That's what you yank them out of what they know and stick them into something new. And yeah, so I'm not going to share everything at this point, but what I will share is there was a power grab between my mom and me, and I was pretty pissed off that she was involved in this, and so I wouldn't let her visit me. That was one of the rights that I had. I could pick. I don't know if I could pick my visitors, but I could pick who wasn't my visitor. Because maybe it caused stress or I don't know. But so she got denied, and I don't know. There's a lot of things you talk about that we're supposed to forgive. We're supposed to forget these different things. But my uncle and my whatever, he was my dad's brother, lived basically in Cedar Rapids there. And then his wife, my aunt, she worked at that hospital, not in that area, but she's like 3 floors away kind of thing. And I would say her more than him, but both did at one time. But she was visiting me. and I knew them, and it was a, it was a connection to my dad, you know, like he's gone now, and it's still kind of hard to wrap your mind around it, and he's gone, and I don't know, that was a connection that we had that in common. And my mom pulled a power play, and apparently some of the powers she had is she could say who could come see me, and she shut them off. She didn't have any problem with them, but she just, yeah, I just won't say what I'm thinking. And and those visits obviously stopped, and it got even lonelier than it already was. So we were in a what, checkmate, stalemate. I don't know. We were there, and she wasn't allowed to call or see me, and I couldn't see anyone else. Well, that worked out, I guess, fine, until I was running out of options, which is I the Title 19 was running out, which doesn't happen. I was there a long ass time. I don't even know how long. I mean, it had to be months. And I had an option presented in front of me, and basically it was either I get released into her care, or I had to go to a halfway house. That's that was my options. And so I finally, here's what here's what came about. I said no. I'll go to the halfway house. I pretty much did. And obviously she probably didn't want to see that happen. And we came up. I don't know if she had to pitched it. I wouldn't have thought of this, but basically, um, if I came out, I wouldn't live with her. I would live with her ex-husband. And I knew him. He's a good, real good guy. And I don't know. She must have talked him into it, or told him. I don't know. Who knows? So that's how it went. That's I transferred from there to there to there to his house. And when you're, I don't know how they do it now, but when you're underage, in the mental hospital, you have to do school, or used to have to do school. Okay. And the very, very first experience I had was, it was a lot more connected to your real school that you were attending, not just kind of like what would you be learning for that grade. And so, I was, I guess, doing school, at both places. This whole time I was, part of my day would be school. And let's just say it's not, it wasn't like normal school. uh, and why is that? Because I was still in school. I was 17 years old. I wasn't graduated. And so as my life started living, there, um, I I was enrolled in school, and you know, I was struggling. There's, I mean, I don't know. I think anyone would be struggling, with this. And I, I had a job, a full time job, and I worked at the in Dyersville. They had a die cast, a toy. They made toys or whatever, these little die cast things, and I was working on the line, um, kind of assembling these little, I don't know if they're zinc or whatever, these little contraptions, tractors and whatnot. And I worked second shift. I was full time in school, And I remember I was missing a lot of school, and oh gosh, there was so many other issues. I was drinking at school, and we're not talking beer. I was drinking liquor. I was drinking liquor on the school bus. I don't know why I was taking this. This would have been before I had the job, because obviously I couldn't leave school early. But um, and I was seeing a counselor, in the school, and it it got so bad they brought in a state counselor. Like, I don't know, for me that makes it sound like they're from Des Moines or something, but this, I had a state counselor who met with me at where I was living, and that was that was pretty good. They thought I had a drinking problem, maybe, I guess. It kind of numbed the pain. I was I wouldn't say I was tuned in most days. I think that's what people. I would say I was numbed most days. Numbed. Yeah, and so that's going on, and the principal of the school grabbed me one day. This is when when I was missing a lot of time, and what do they call them, suspension. I had 3 suspensions. My next one's going to be an expulsion, or whatever they call it when you're done. And he said, "Look," and he was spot on. And we, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool of him, to be honest, because I think a lot of times if people would just say what they think, then you got something to work with. You can deal with it. But he asked me something to the effect of, like, why are you even coming to school? Why are you? And I just told him, because I was getting Dad's Social Security check, and it was a nice check. That alone would have made me with more free cash than most of the kids, for sure. And but the stipulations, I had to be full time in, I don't know I think they call it secondary school. Basically, I couldn't go to college either. The money dried up. So, well, he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I don't get my money if you're not here this amount of time." See, because if I didn't attend enough, then he didn't get his allowance, his allotment for me as a student. He'd have all the outlay but no income. So yeah, we kind of struck a deal. The cool thing about it is I felt pretty empowered. I felt like I was shaking this guy's hand as an adult. Not, I don't know. I don't know. It felt pretty good. And so then my employment went to full time, and I left school every day early because of the shift. Typically they start before school gets out, and drive time and everything else. And I worked a full time job at the toy deal. Well, when I was at the toy deal, the toy manufacturing place, there was a girl there, and I smoked back then, and I mean, a lot of people smoked. The girls always smoked Marlboro. Was it Golds? Were they gold? I think they're gold. And all the dudes smoked Marlboro Reds, like clockwork. There was almost no, and that was even state to state was like that. Okay, girls Marlboro Golds, guys Marlboro Reds. But the problem with Marlboro Reds, with smoking Marlboro Reds, is I didn't really like the taste. Like I didn't like them. I actually preferred the Golds. But the biggest problem with it is either guys or girls would bum cigarettes from you if you smoked Marlboro Reds. and then it brought me back to fourth grade, which is when I started smoking, as crazy as it was. Fourth grade, maybe a third of a pack a week, somewhere in there. And what did I smoke? A red. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. They're non-filters. They're my brain is completely going blank. But they're I tried doing the Camel non-filters, and they were just a little raspy. But these were, gosh, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. I could see Pall Malls. I smoked Pall Mall Reds or whatever with and they're non-filter. And you know how many people borrowed cigarettes from me? No one. No one. So yeah, that's what I smoked. But so me and this gal, we were out smoking at the picnic table, like everyone does, and there's other people. We weren't the only ones out there, and we kind of hit it off as friends and friends only. And eventually, she's like, "Well, I got this, this gal that she was friends with. That hey, I think she was trying to set us up, And come to find out, I actually worked. We worked with her mom, right there on the line, and I didn't know that. So I worked with her mom, but well, we got set up, and yeah, it kind of just worked, She smoked Marble Golds or whatever, lights. What is that they call them? Lights, Marble Lights, Marble Reds, Marble Lights. I don't know. And this was a good girl. I still will say that to this day. I wouldn't say she outclassed me. We were probably in the same social economic type class or whatever, but and we were probably equals for smarts at that time. And she's a little bit more, what do you want to say it, naive. I had, with everything that had gone on, I had, and what I'll end up sharing different times here, I had quite a bit more experience and just life exposure. Yeah, to tell you how long it go, I have just a few different memories, and one of them is we were watching a movie when it came out in the basement at their house, and it was, I think it's called Cool Man Running, that Jamaican bobsled team that then did the ice thing that had just come out. So that, if that dates me at all. But anyway, one particular night we were playing board games. So it was, me, and then obviously her, my girlfriend at the time, and her mom and dad. I'm sharing this because I think it's absolutely hilarious. But I was absolutely petrified in the moment. So, we're going around. I can't remember what the game was. It's something I've never played again. I've never seen, but they had it. And I had to read off either the question or answer. And what I had to read was the state of Virginia. So Virginia. Would you believe that I could not say Virginia? Instead, 2 different times, I said Virginia. And then I said it a second time, vagina. I obviously knew that was wrong, but I don't know where the hell that came from. And I can't remember which one of her. And I was going for a third time to be able to say it again. And I don't know. I know what happened. And one of her parents, Virginia. It says Virginia. Anyway. Yeah, it was a real interesting time. Going to school, getting that check, dad's social security check, and then although that was good, I made a probably about little over double that at working. I mean, I was rolling. I was absolutely rolling and could kind of do whatever I wanted. Um, it it wasn't all rosy, and I was still absolutely struggling, with mental health, and me and her had some issues, and to be honest, many were caused by me, um, but there's a few caused by her also, and I was I was I was just in a low, but not a 1 day low. It was just it was an ongoing low, and I'm pretty sure this at this time period was one of the times that we were uh, broken up or separated or whatever. And and truth is, I still I had this like weird void in like just to the core of my being, my heart or chest, wherever, even my mind. Because remember, I got ripped I got ripped away from Arizona, and ripped or torn is about the only way I could say it, because it wasn't like, oh, I left. I didn't. No, I got torn. The day. Here's how that day went. The uh, cops showed up, multiple ones in the street, which will be a story I will have to share. And then the paramedics, and they strapped my ass down to the gurney, and took me to that hospital. I would say that's ripped out of your life, you know. And now I'm in this life. And in the meantime, and I might be off a month or something, in here, but in the meantime, my ex-wife, which was my girlfriend, on and off, kind of the same deal. It's got to be me. It's got to be me. They had moved, to Texas, and so there wasn't closure. There wasn't closure, and that definitely played into some of this that was going on, and with the new girlfriend and whatnot. This is definitely part of it. But it was building the suicide, the notion to kill myself was building, and then it was decided upon. And I think I shared in my other videos how I found that it was the pamphlet or booklet of the different ways to off yourself, the complete guide. And obviously one of them was carbon monoxide, dioxide, monoxide. I don't know, from car fumes. And like I shared in my other ones, other than maybe my first failed suicide, maybe the rest were 100% go. They were only there to do the job. And so I think everyone knows the classic uh, way of doing that. Everybody's heard a story, or they've thrown it in a movie where you put the garage doors down, roll your windows down, or whatever. You just go to sleep. And I had that. I had a two-stall garage that the car was actually parked in for this modifications that I'm about to tell you about, and I mean, I could have done that. But there's two reasons I didn't. Is one, I wanted it to work. And I thought if a car has to run long enough to make enough fumes to fill up a huge two-car garage, does that allow, does that, would that make it greater that it wouldn't work? You know, I don't know. So I aim to improve my odds, to better them. And then the second part is, you know, this is my stepdad, and not that he wouldn't have found me where I went, you know, or maybe a search rescue type person would have found me first, but he definitely would have been the first to find me there. And maybe a third reason, and I think somebody could hold their breath and do this, but you know, one of my criteria was always to not endanger somebody else, along with being somewhat presentable in your dead state. I don't know if that's the way to say it. And I don't know, for some reason I thought there could be risk of somebody coming in to have to shut the car off or whatever, you know. I doubt it, but thinking about it now, I doubt it, but that definitely was one of the reasons. So I devised a plan. Maybe that's why all these failed, is because I overcomplicated it. No, I wouldn't say it overcomplicated. I enhanced it. But right behind the driver's seat, in the footwell, you know, for the passengers in the back. This is a little 4-door Chevette. It was super cool. I remember the day I bought it and everything. I loved that car. Loved it. But I didn't need it where I was going. So he was helping me one last time. I kind of pulled the carpet back or whatever and took and cut an opening, you know, just not super big, just barely big enough. And I went underneath the car. Well, I'd already gone underneath the car for this point to know where to make the hole. But I took the back half of the exhaust off of the car and measured up, and it had to have a bend in it and all this. So I kind of drew it all up and the diameter, and I went to Bobin's, the muffler shop in town, and had the piece made. And they made the piece, and I went home and installed it, which basically clamped on to the remaining part of the exhaust, and then turned it up and stuck up a little ways in, you know, behind the driver's seat. Pretty tight opening, you know, around it. It wasn't like you could stick your feet through this hole or anything. And that was my idea. I was like, wait, if I can change or make smaller the volume that needs to fill up, it's got to work, right? More is better. Or in this case, less is better, which gives you more. Anyway, it wasn't necessarily easy to go get that part. I felt like, even though I was just getting a piece of pipe, you know, made, I just felt like people could read my mind or tell what I was going to do with it. You know, I don't know, they couldn't, but that's the way it felt. And I was a little bit, you know, worked up as I was installing it, because this is kind of prepping for your end, you know. And like I said in the other videos, how when there's like usually really bad things or really good things, it kind of solidifies in your memory. It makes a little stronger link or bond or whatever. And that's the case. That's the case with this here. And I know it was daylight. Um, I can't tell you really what time of day because it was just really hazy and like foggy. You couldn't see the sky enough where, I mean, if your car was sitting outside, there would definitely be, all kinds of dew all over it, and everything on the ground's wet. But it didn't rain. It was cold, and the crops had been taken out of the fields. And my plan was to drive it up a few terraces and then out into the field to do it. And I did, and I started up the car, and I didn't know how fast you would die from this, so I had the windows, roll down because I had to get to my destination, which wasn't far, like quarter mile if that. But I mean, my goal wasn't to like kind of die on the way. Maybe, I don't know. I wanted to get to my destination, and I did. I went up, the first terrace and the second terrace, and I think it was the third terrace, and I turned off to the right, and I remember the sound, even though it's so loud from the engine, especially when you revved it at all, at all, it was almost deafening. But I could still hear and feel the corn stalks breaking over as my little Chevette is entering into the, kind of leaving the gravel and going onto into the field. And there was a moment of kind of pause and reflection. Car's still running, I mean, it wasn't long, but I mean, there was a moment where you're not doing anything. You're not driving. You've parked, and you're just about ready to roll the windows up, and so there's kind of this moment between when you shift to do those, and then you get to kind of get to think about it a little bit. I proceeded to reach over and roll up the passenger window all the way, and then I reached back over to roll up the driver's window. So now all the windows are open, and the car is just idling. And I remember I did tilt my seat back a little bit. I guess kind of like if you were in a lazy boy or something, just kind of relaxing to go away. And the smell of exhaust was absolutely intense. That little carbureted 4-cylinder was probably a gajillion miles on it. Who knows? I don't know. I don't remember. But it was just absolutely, rancid. The toxicity of the smell. And then, it started affecting the eyes a little bit, as in kind of like burning or whatever, a little bit burning, and kind of a little bit of kind of like a welling up of tears or whatever. And it did start getting, it wasn't that it was hard to breathe, it just definitely wasn't desirable to breathe. I mean, it was pretty friggin' toxic. And the windows of the car, now remember it's all super humid outside, it's chilly outside, but you get that warm, humid exhaust on the inside, and it did not take very long before they're fogged up, and you can't. If you were to look outside, you wouldn't be able to see very far, but you couldn't see outside because the fog, and it was, or dew, or whatever you'd call it. It was all over the inside of every piece of glass in there. And I remember the first that I noticed of the water droplets forming on the inside of the glass, and then they kind of ball up and roll down, and it was almost something to watch why this was taking place. It was getting pretty bad at this point. I remember a couple times looking in the rearview mirror, which didn't fog up really, and I had probably broken one of my rules, which was to be kind of presentable. Presentable, when they find you. I was getting a little kind of gross looking, I guess. I was starting to swell, and kind of the veins are popping out or whatever, different place, neck and forehead stuff. The eyes were starting to look like my shirt, and they were definitely running more. I did think that it was taking quite a long time. I didn't know what to expect. Unfortunately, that book never had any like endings. It was just like, this is how to end. It didn't talk about getting there. So that was kind of you had to self-discover all those on your own. And so I didn't know what this looked like, but let's just say I thought it would have happened fast. I mean, at least 5 minutes had to been going by now, if not 10. I mean, it was a tremendous amount of time. But I am starting to get really dizzy, like stoned, like I guess just high or whatever, like kind of trippy or whatever. And I guess you could kind of say it was almost relaxing, and the worries were going away. And the windows are just continuing to do their thing, and I don't know if that car burned a little oil too or what, but it was almost foggy in the car. Maybe there's just that much humidity, so it wasn't just a window thing anymore. It was like you kind of felt damp yourself and whatnot. It was yeah, I already said this, but it was a longer goodbye than I somehow thought it would be. But then my dizziness started changing, and the fact that I was kind of watching those water droplets, which were very, very intense. Now, I mean, there's many, many, many of them. They'd run down the window, and I was watching it, and I kind of realized that I was dozing off. I wasn't really ever feeling tired, but I was like, wait, I'm closing, closing my eyes. And then it kind of got to the point where you didn't desire to open your eyes. It was like the happy state was with your eyes closed, and the body was relaxing, and the friggin' exhaust was just was toxic at this point. I mean, just it kind of burned to breathe, and it was raw, and I just sat there, and then I wasn't there anymore. I had left. I didn't know I'd left, but I wasn't there. And I came to, and then I go out again. And there was really no need for concern coming, going out, and you didn't care. It just happened, I guess it was the body's way of trying to fight, cling to life, And I went out again. And I couldn't hear the car running when I was out or anything. I was just. It wasn't like quite honestly, I wasn't out. I feel confident to say I was dead. I was no longer there. And that is probably when my my third near death experience happened. And when I was out, and it was brighter than it was outside. Still kind of fog though, and there was personages. There was no words, no gestures, no nothing. Just kind of like if you were looking down a hallway and you saw some people at the end of the hallway, kind of thing. They were people. A lot of white was kind of the decor was white. And I felt like I was in that presence for quite some time. I never really got closer. It was kind of like on this particular one, like I said, there was no talking in this one that I had. There's no gesturing, but I also feel like I wasn't invited. Like kind of what are you doing here? But that wasn't said. It was like love, but not like it wasn't scary or eerie. It was more like love and peace and stuff, is the way I would describe it. But it was also, I never felt like I belonged. There wasn't. I don't know how to explain that, but I didn't. It didn't feel like it was home, or at least at that time. And that ended. I woke up in the car, and holy crap, it's bad. I'm hacking, and I'm drooling. I'm snotting. The eyeballs are just about completely out of my head. Blood red. You could say I'm crying, but it was coming out faster than that. But I wasn't crying. It was just, they were just kind of pissed off. And it was absolutely toxic. You could have cut it with a knife. And then I went out again. Seems like part of me wanted to stay living or something. I don't know, When I came to the next time, and my face was, oh gosh, it was just, it's kind of weird. The eyeballs are popped out, but the face is so swollen around it. They kind of almost look normal in the cheeks, and yeah, the body was freaking out. But when I came to that next time, I don't know what prompted me to do this. I can't really tell you like my state, as in like feeling like, did I change my mind and not want to die, or is that what was given to me, but whatever way, I guess you could say I gave up, and I pulled the door handle to the door, and I just fell out onto those corn stalks and that wet grass, not wet grass, the dew corn stalks and mud or whatever. And so my head is upside down. My tail end is still pretty much on the seat. I'm flopped up. Seat, I don't even know where my feet were. Foot well up, I don't know. It didn't matter. I was hacking, and vision was all jacked. I thought it was the car. It was a mess. I laid there. I don't know how long I laid there. Car's still running in this upside down position with that cold air, on my body that it hadn't been exposed to for all that time. And I laid there just clinging to life, because it was kind of weird. Before I was in a living state trying to get to a dead state, and now it was like I was in a dead state trying to find the living. And I was sick. Man, I was so sick. Sick doesn't even begin. Sick's not a good enough word. I mean, I was death. I was completely dead, and the only thing that was there was, I guess, this little bit of spirit that changed its mind, I guess. Gave up. I don't know what you'd say, but and I guess at least in that moment decide to carry on. Eventually, and it was seriously a long time. I could have been there an hour or two. Upside down or whatever. But I got in that car, and the freaking car was just reeked, and well, the car was still running this whole time, and so I had the door kind of open, and I was just death, and I drove down those terraces and pulled it back into the garage, and somehow mustered my way into the house and upstairs to my bed. And I've never felt, I mean, I didn't know reality from life. I was sick. I was so sick. I was alone. I never did share any of this, in that time period. I'm sharing it now. I mean, I've shared with a couple close friends in the years, probably maybe not quite to this level of how it felt. These are not a how-to guide. These are mainly to help you understand what was surrounding it, what it was like, the pain of it, and the loneliness of it. You didn't talk about those things back then. And so I didn't. It was just mine. I feel pretty confident in telling you that basically I was 90-some% bedridden for a week. I was bad. I was so friggin' sick. I thought I wanted to die before. I wanted to escape this pain and the headache and the just every. I mean, pretty much it felt like my body was completely failing around me. You know, that just like every last bit of me felt dead or dying, except for this stupid little part in there, this one little part. That wanted to, I guess, live, you know, or whatever. I talk about the loneliness when I've described these, and I'm trying to think this this is probably my loneliest time. You know, this attempt, which, like I said, is like number 6. And it still just kept adding to my feeling like either I couldn't die or that this isn't real, or I don't know. Because trust me, I did not give up early. Like I don't feel like that was maybe you guys think that's the case, but I don't feel like I gave up early. You may say, "Oh, I'm glad you didn't give up," or whatever, however you say it. But I there's part of me, and I don't know if I shared in the other 2 of these, is part of this is to share the burning question that I've had since really maybe age 16, somewhere in there, when my first attempt failed. And that's why, like, do you think I did a good enough job? Like, is that real? Do you see my point in why I say failed suicide? Because I wasn't attempting at all. Everything says that should have worked. And it didn't. And when you add that to like 18 or 19 other ones and some pretty crazy stories on motorcycles, couple pretty crazy stories in cars. When you think you're superhuman, you do some pretty crazy stuff. And then that last accident, where it wasn't of my hands, you know, and lived through that one. And then it starts making you go, oh, if you do the Christianity thing, you're like, okay, then God must have a purpose for me. But then that kind of feels good. But what is it? What's the purpose? What am I supposed to do? I'm not that special. When do I do this? Have I already done it? Is it something I keep doing over time? Is there something I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not doing? Like I didn't pick up the hints? I don't know. I really hope that, because, let me look at the time, okay. I really hope that the listeners that listen to this can get some, I don't know what word they use, is it empathy? Is that where you care about someone else? I don't know. But man, it's just like people start talking about mental health, and in society either A, makes a joke about it, not to make fun, not to make fun of that person, but just as a whole, it's comical, or whatever, it's a punchline. But other than that, everybody freezes up. They don't know what the hell to do. They don't know what to do. It's so taboo. It's so different. I'm gonna tell you what you can do. I'm gonna tell you right now what you can do. Okay. 1, you are not in any way responsible for anyone else's suicide. You're not. Let that sink in. You're not. Number 2, I'll be quite honest, I don't think there's any words that you're going to say that's going to necessarily keep them from committing suicide if it's that time. Maybe number 3, talking about suicide or mental health or whatever the hell it is, some sad stuff, doesn't necessarily, it's not equal to suicide. You can talk about those subjects. If somebody had a broken leg or had a knee surgery done, you'd be like, "Oh, hey, Bob, looks like you're getting around pretty good." If that was regarding mental health, you wouldn't say shit. Gosh, if I ask him if he's having how's your day going? Oh, he's going to go off himself because he wasn't thinking about suicide before. Come on, guys, you're not that important. I'm sorry. Okay. It's a lonely, lonely place in a lot of it, but the depression for sure. It's a lonely place. So you know what? It's just an ear. And I'm going to tell you this. You know what there's not at these stupid facilities that I go to, that other people are going? There's no friggin' ears. None. I feel like I want to swear here. It's a fucking joke. You, no matter what you do, will be better than those places. Guarantee it. For actual work being done. So you can't own their death, okay? You can't. You can't go back and go, gosh, I should have said the color red instead of the color blue. Sorry. Now, I will point out, I do think, and this is, there have been cases where somebody has kind of pushed somebody to suicide, okay? And including AI lately, okay? But look at those dialogues, okay? Look at the dialogues that have caused somebody to finish, do the deed. They don't look like anything that you would say. Okay, nothing. You can't even reshape the sentences. They're completely too. One is encouraging the death. One is saying that you suck at life, and on. You're not going to say those things. Show me data where somebody has said. Either, you know what? Even sitting there silent is not alone. They're not alone anymore. But you do not get that in the facilities. I'll talk about the facilities sometime, but I'm frustrated. Okay, that I can say. They're bad. They are bad. When we talk about meeting the actual needs of someone who's, depressed or whatever, getting ready for suicide or whatever. And I kind of already said this, but I just feel like saying it a different way. You can't stop them. And that goes back to the first one, is you can't own it because it's not yours. And you can't, well, I'm sorry, you don't necessarily have, I'm not trying to deter you, but just, you don't have the right words. You have good words, but I don't know. I just would really like some real awareness, I guess, to this. It's my job history has been, man, I'm getting long. Nobody's going to listen to this. I'll have to put something really catchy. But I don't know, there's some meat here right now. This has been extremely hard on my employment history. And, I feel I have pretty good character, about me. And I had this saying I've kind of taught the kids and everything is, something to the effect of basically, give more than you're getting paid for. Now, that's not mine. That's Napoleon Hill. And if you want to get really smart and really rich, not overnight, read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, but you won't. Okay, but he said, talked about giving more than you're getting paid for. And I remember one particular job, I was in a rut for a while. And if I was like most of the population, I would have just kept going in this kind of rut state, soaking up my paycheck, But I felt that wasn't me. I didn't feel right. And I was struggling too. So, this kind of went, So I put in my notice. And said, hey, I am not able to do my job at this current time, And, I was out of vacation and all that crap. And so I quit. And I don't know what day of the week was. Let's say it was Thursday or Friday or something. And I was like, man, I just threw away one of the best. That's what I always say. I always threw away one of the best, but they were good jobs. But I just threw it away. And a buddy of mine says, hey, because he knew my boss. He says, you call him and you tell him what is going on, okay? And see if they wouldn't take you back. Well, meanwhile, I'm kind of feeling like he doesn't completely understand because I'm not better in just a few days I've been off. Okay, better. But anyway, it must have been a Friday when I called my boss. So it must have been, who knows how it landed, but it was like a Friday. And he there actually seemed like there was some compassion, and he listened and everything else. And okay, so you're saying you want your job back? Yeah, I should, that. Okay. So he goes to HR and gets it reversed. Well, it's already been long enough that, anyway, we'll stay off all that. But I was basically completely terminated at that point. There was enough time. But he got it reversed. And he calls me back to say he's got it reversed. And I'll see you on Monday. Oh shit. We don't understand mental health. I made it very clear that I was still not right, but apparently he thought it was. I went back on Monday, and I lasted a little bit. But that just shows you. They just, if I always bring this back to it. If I had an ACL done, everyone would expect you to be limping when you came back. They'd expect you to still be in pain. They'd expect your duties to be limited. It would just be expected. Mental health doesn't have that. it's binary. It's either you're good or I guess you're bad. I don't know. I don't know. And I can speak from experience that that's been the case at multiple employers. That same type of mentality that there's no understanding. Anyway, I babbled on long enough. I hope this was beneficial for you. Thanks.